Wow, your eyes are just as beautiful as the ocean. Oh, hobbies? Yeah, I build and I play Minecraft, so yeah. Oh, shit. The view is here. I have gotta go. Please forgive me. God, you guys are very impatient. Could you not let me wrap that date up a little nicer? Poor Amanda must be missing me right now. But it doesn't matter now. Welcome back to Daybreak SMP. Today is the 7th episode of the series, and we're going to be doing Back to My Roots. We're going back to building, ladies and gentlemen. This is all I do. So I want to start off with a little preview of the things that spawn looks like, things like that, and all sorts. But other than that, we'll jump right into the building. So, I'm going to assume that you were able to see my wonderful trees I've done around spawn and all of the beautiful things that people have been contributing, which is lovely. The trees were taken offline as I was not feeling confident enough to build a tree that would fit Spawn's atmosphere greatest, so that's just a warning. But let's jump into my first build today, which is the warehouse, which I'm going to explain the lore of it as we go on. So I hope you're excited. Alright, let's get into the first build for today. Today we're going to start with the warehouse, which is going to be the first major build of the marina for a while. At this point, I haven't built anything in the last month or so that has been for myself, my own builds. So this is a big fresh get back into it kind of build, so I'm kind of excited. So this is going to be known as the Daybreak Overseas International Trade Center, or Do It. The style for it is obviously an industrial warehouse where it's going to be storing international trade goods from overseas. I got this idea to build this warehouse here originally as South Lemon decided to build his boat as a redstone supply boat in the marina just next to the stone platform. So I thought it would make such sense to have a warehouse right next to it for unloading all of the redstone supplies that he's providing at spawn. So that's what this little black section is outlined on the side for storage and things like that on the outside, which is good. I decided to go with a simple grey, upwards gradient on this build, and I feel like it turned out quite nicely. I used very simplistic blocks, tough to pale moss to andesite, very simple, very easy, just something that I could get the grasp of the colors I wanted. I used Pinterest to find some good examples of industrial warehouses. I might flash a few of them on screen so you guys can get an idea of what I was looking at, but it really helped me design on the shape and the style I want. I am building this as I go as well. I'm not using Lightmatica for this build. I try not to use Lightmatica for the marina builds, as I want everything to feel very handmade, very authentic, and very spur of the moment kind of thinking, and it will be a really good thing to look at through the end when I'm going over my build style and seeing how much it's evolved from the start to the end. Quick warning here, I've accidentally run my camera over the top here. This is a 5-minute clip, so I completely missed it. I apologize, guys, just ignore it. It never happened. This is the crane that Terry built as well next to the boat, which has given me the idea to build the warehouse to begin with. So I hope you guys are enjoying the building process so far. I want to keep this build more on the simplistic side, as it's not supposed to be the center of attention, as it's supposed to just be a warehouse that's on the waterfront. I decided to keep the shaping a little more unique, as I didn't want it to just end up being a boxy warehouse that kind of just looks like a, well, box. I wanted it to have some form and shape that kind of made it still have its own visual contrast and interest to the scenery. Noticing also all of the red wall lineups in the background, they also do disappear. I do not keep those, as they are just ideas of how I can plan out the area, and I ended up not liking quite a lot of them and the size of the buildings to work with, so I wanted a larger scale, which is something that happens to me quite a lot. I'm not too prepared on my planning just yet, and I'm kind of just winging it where I go. So if you've got any suggestions of what I could add to the marina, please let me know. Also, instead of calling it a marina, I've decided that it's probably time to give it a name. So if you guys have any name suggestions in the comments, that would be great, because I'm at the point where this is not a marina anymore, this is just becoming a town. So I would prefer something with like the term harbour or port, something like that in it. So please leave your suggestions down below, and I'd love to hear what you have to say. So I decided to also include these little windows on the side, as I wanted some light peeking through with natural lighting, which makes it look pretty nice with shaders as well, though I don't really come inside here because the interior is going to be empty, as I am going to be using this as a little warehouse for a few builds for myself. So like, not builds, more like farms for myself, like firework crafters and things like that, auto brewers, stuff that'll be convenient for the later times on the server, and I'll end up using as time progresses on Daybreak SMP. I also decided to keep the roof simple and go with just a blackstone tile roof, as I wanted to not overdo it with the gradients like I've done in the past, and just keep things simple and clean. And I think that turned out really nicely, because it's not a build that stands out on its own, but it looks nicer in the grand scheme of things, which I think turns out great. Now, the build is not complete at the end of this flashback clip, because I intend to showcase the entire build at the end. Introducing Daybreak's most elusive player, the Black Ronin, a nameless figure who's been terrorizing the server of Daybreak SMP. He has been known for destroying buildings, stealing, leaving threatening notes, and generally being a menace. I'm lucky enough to not be a target so far. But other members aren't so lucky, such as the Unforgettables, who had their base destroyed. Now, the Ronin wears a yellow and grey outfit, has a hidden face, and tends to stick away from people, slowly driving other members to turn against one another. Majority of the targeting has been focused on players like Pell, the King of Daybreak, and his two bodyguards, Junkie and Vinless, who are very heavy loose cannons. I have been paying attention and thinking of who could be behind stuff like this, and while Junkie has been a target as he states, he has also been incredibly untrustworthy and has a bad reputation with theft, destruction, and murder. While I have forgiven Seph for the dragon egg and not cared about it for a while, the people who have targeted her seem to be people who haven't forgiven her, making me suspect Seph as another suspect as well. It's not too far-fetched of a concept either. Now, we won't know much about the Ronin until the Ronin reveals their identity, so it's a kind of a slow burn and wait, so hopefully we get a bit more information coming soon about our mysterious and elusive Ronin. Alright, thank you everybody for listening to my little spiel about the Ronin, but let's put that aside for now. We have one more build, technically two more to do today, so I hope you're excited to keep going in on that. So I say let's get right into it, shall we? Sounds like a good idea. The foundation for any good town is absolutely facilities and stores. Things that allow us to actually live there. So I decided we've already done a butcher and a general store and now a warehouse, so I think it's time we do two more stores. So I'm starting with a laundromat, a simple facility, and then I'm going to have an intertwined building to it, which is going to be a tailor. So we're going to have a very clothing centralized area of this little spot here. I decided to go really wacky with the buildings too. Really unique shape compared to what I've done, which is very just house looking. I decided to make them feel very industrial, very strange, and all in all very unique, and it did end up coming out really nicely in the end. I also decided to use a sandstone palette as I wanted each building to feel a little more unique than the last. So I've obviously done bricks already, and now I've moved to tough, and now I'm going to be moving to sandstone. So suggest any palettes you want to see in my next build. That would be lovely and help me figure out something. I also used hanging signs here as it really was going to bring a little bit more color to this top part, and this is my first time experimenting with this style of building, so if you have any suggestions on how I can improve it, please let me know. I decided to go with mangrove. Originally this was going to be the tailor, but I ended up swapping them around midway through because I decided that I wanted more space for one building, which was the tailor, and the laundromat could have less space and be tighter, which is what ended up happening. So I ended up swapping them around. I also decided to add a little plaque at the front with a billboard on it, which I wasn't the most happy with, but I was happy to accept it anyways and go on with that, and I'll end up changing it later in the future depending on how I feel. But this felt like a slow process and a very slow burn on it. I was sitting on VC with Vermilion and Vel at the time, so I had people to talk to while I was doing it, and I did have a really good time building these two buildings. I did pull up obviously some more references as I went along and just scattered a few barrels and things like that on the outside to be some filler. I'm still working out how to do a little bit of like world filler so my hallways feel nice, things like that, in between gaps and all sorts, but that's a work in progress to work on very shortly as I'm now starting to fill in more of the marina. It's getting tighter, more city-like every day in every build we do, which is incredibly exciting. I'm excited to keep going. I decided to make the palettes for each of these two also kind of polar opposite in a way. While they kept the similar... Oh, that just cut. I don't know why that did that. Okay. While they kept similar palettes, I decided to have one be mangrove wood and one be warped wood. Why not crimson, you ask? I'm not a fan of crimson wood. I find that it's a bit too pinky for my liking, though it's not my favorite wood type in all of Minecraft. So I decided to go with mangrove instead, which I much prefer the palette and the tone of mangrove wood. I found that the contrasting colors really brought a lot of interest, and it just felt really nice and really good to look at. I also decided to do the interiors to these buildings, which I'll show closer towards the end of the exterior builds, and have these big giant pane windows on the front, as I want to have some things shown in the window to show as like purchasable suits and clothing, etc, etc. I also decided to add some plants, pots, lighting, generally bring the area alive at nighttime, which really helped me feel a little more confident about my build and how it was looking, as I was a bit 50-50 on this build at the time and I wasn't too sure. I had Vermilion helping me out quite a bit, figuring out what colors to use, what looks right and wrong, and giving his opinion and 2 cents, which really helped me make each building feel much more unique and better, because his honesty really helped me push myself forwards and become a better builder overall. So this is most of the exterior done, mostly what we'll see anyways. I ended up putting a sign on the front of this one too, calling this one T&C Tailor, which I didn't remember the name of the laundromat. I might have to go back and check that eventually and let you guys know in the next video or so, but that's all good. Doesn't really matter in the end, does it? But the interior was the very interesting and difficult part for me, which we'll get onto in one moment. Now, the first interior I decided to start with was the laundromat. I thought we'll go very, like I had a bunch of references and I was going like kind of very 1980s laundromat, but I ended up not doing an incredibly good job on my first attempt, as I found that it ended up looking more like a kitchen than it did a laundromat. I was told to, like, as you can see here, I decided to use blast furnaces to make the washing machines, which I'm still not sure on to this day. I did end up keeping them in my next attempt, but I'm not too sure on palette, and I thought that it could have been a little more unique in a sense, but other than that, I thought that it turned out nicely in the end once I changed it around. So if you can see, it looks a bit like a kitchen right now, which is what I was more confident in building, as I had recently just done an incredibly nice kitchen build. So that was a big no. Verm came in and told me, yeah, you might have to go back on the drawing board with this one because it doesn't really look like a laundromat. And he was right. And this is what he was telling me here. So I decided to pretty much take down everything that made it look like a kitchen, kind of keep it a bit more bare bones, as there's not much in a laundromat. I took away the checkered pattern floor, which really helped change the aesthetic of it, as when you usually see those checkered pattern floors, it feels like it's mostly kitchen. I decided to keep it simple with just some chairs and then some paintings and things like that just kind of brought the building to life and really helped me see a better style instead of what I had originally, which was not the greatest, I must say. So, though it was really annoying not having a 2x3 painting in Minecraft as well. Alright, moving on to the tailor, I decided to go again with the polar opposite palette here with the blues, and I felt that going from a warm to a cold palette might work nicely. Originally, my first idea was to have these palettes swapped pretty much. I wanted the tailor to be red and dark oak and things like that, but I ended up changing it up because I thought it would look more interesting if I swapped them around and give them their own color that doesn't feel standard. It doesn't feel like normal. It gives it more uniqueness to it, and I found that that really turned out nice. I started a bit too heavy with the blue, I found out, and it really overwhelmed, so I ended up tearing up the floorboards and some of the other things and changing them to tough instead, and that kind of helped me see a better vision on what I was doing, and the rest of the tailor felt like a breeze. Also forgot that fire aspect swords destroy armor stands, which was kind of a bummer because I needed to go get some more. I wanted to have my big window displays have like suits in them, and I don't put any armor on them until the very end, as I didn't record me doing it, so oh well. With the laundromat and the tailor being complete, that brings us to the end of today's video. I hope you guys have enjoyed this one very much. I will be previewing the builds at the end in their full finished glory with every piece of decoration, so I hope you're ready for that and excited. So I'll just cut right to the chase, get you guys into that. I hope you enjoyed this video. Please like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys all in the next video. Bye-bye!